Yes, nuclear energy is dangerous, but not necessarily in the way you might think. Now, when I mention the dangers of nuclear energy, I can already imagine the images going in your head. Green goop, mutations, meltdowns, and mushroom clouds. At least those are the things perceived by most people because of pop culture and media. But that's not the case. Now, before I continue, it's important that you at least understand the fundamentals of nuclear fission as a process and how energy is generated. Now, imagine, if you will, my hands are a fissile atom, whether that be uranium, plutonium, thorium, anything. And now, it's being agitated within the reactor. And after all this agitation and all this energy buildup, bang! It splits into two. And that split releases massive amounts of energy. And this isn't just one atom. This is millions of billions of atoms, all splitting apart, releasing massive amounts of energy, which creates heat, which boils water around the reactor, creating steam, spinning a turbine. And that turbine is what creates the electricity we use. Now, this is an uncontrolled reaction, as once the energy is in that system to keep splitting these atoms, it will not stop. And that is where the danger lies, in the way that the reaction is not controlled. But as humans do, we found a way to control it, with very creatively named control rods. These will drop into the reactor, and they will slow down and absorb that energy, not outright stopping the reaction, but at least slowing it down enough so it will calm down. This is how meltdowns are prevented. Now, a big boogeyman when it comes to nuclear reactors or the word nuclear as a whole is radiation. It's sorely misunderstood. But the thing is, it's not scary. It's particles, it's beams. In fact, the biggest general producer of radiation is in everyone's pocket right now, I can assure you. It's even in mine. A mobile phone. This produces about 2 kilogram watts of radiation per hour every day by just sitting there in your pocket. Now, this is non-ionizing radiation. So yes, it is slightly different to what is output by a nuclear reactor or a bomb. But it goes to say, radiation is not scary. Now then, I mentioned ionizing. What is that? What does that mean? What is ionizing radiation? Ionizing radiation is radiation that can damage your cells. And it's all around us. Again, the lights, radio waves, anything. Now, there are 3 distinct types of radioactive particles that are ionizing: alpha, beta, and gamma. Now, alpha is commonly agreed to be the least dangerous because it can't even penetrate your skin. Now then, how can it be dangerous? Well, it is if ingested, but I doubt anyone here is going around eating radioactive isotopes. No? Good. Okay, so alpha particles then. Other than your skin, how else can they be stopped? A piece of paper. If I place something emitting alpha particles directly in front of me and then put paper in front of that, those particles cannot get to me. They will be stopped. That's why it's not necessarily that dangerous. The second form, beta particles. These are slightly more dangerous. They can go through your skin and damage your cells, but they are also relatively easy to control. Simply, aluminium, lead, any sort of barrier will stop them in their tracks. They don't have high penetrative capabilities, say, unlike the last form. The final form, gamma, isn't even a particle. It's a wave or a beam. Again, similar to light, similar to a radio wave, similar to a UV light. But I doubt any of you are, again, shining a UV light on your hand for hours and hours on end. All of these things are gamma waves, and they are radioactive, they are ionizing, they can damage your cells. It's what's in an X-ray. Again, it can be stopped. The main way it's stopped is what's over reactor 4 in Chernobyl right now. Concrete and lead. Thick layers which prevent this from getting out, from causing damage, from spewing everywhere. But that's not what's said. It's said that radiation is dangerous and uncontrolled and can't be stopped. That's what's believed, but it's not. Now then, another issue is fear-mongering, and what is the crux of that? It's something that I assure you, you've all heard of before. The Chernobyl reactor. I even mentioned it just then. Now, reactor 4 of the Chernobyl power plant in Pripyat went into critical meltdown. It caused tremendous amounts of damage. I'm not going to pretend it didn't. But why did it do that? Well, it's commonly agreed that the main cause was both a series of issues caused by human error. That's right, human error, not the fault of the reactor or the design or the energy process as a whole, but the people operating it, the people running it, the people in charge of the cleanup operations after, and even the government themselves. Now, why did it go into meltdown? Well, during a routine test, safety protocols were not followed by the team. As such, it went critical. And as they tried to drop control rods into the reactor, there was a fatal flaw. The control rods had graphite tips. Now, usually, this would stop it. However, the water that had already seeped into the reactor as a result of the meltdown was replaced by the graphite, then allowing the particles to bounce around more and be more agitated, temporarily speeding up the reaction, increasing the severity of the meltdown. The cooling port was blocked. This caused it to hit critical mass and explode, spewing radiation all over the place. This was not helped when firefighters were sent in ill-equipped to deal with the radiation, and that control methods were delayed and hindered by the government covering it all up. The effects of it were felt even in the UK, as radiation had spread into clouds and soared all the way to England, where sheep had to be culled because of their radioactive effects, because they weren't safe for human consumption. And the effects of this are still felt today with soaring lamb prices. Now then, why, if a tragedy like this can happen, do I endorse it as a power source? Because we've learned better safety protocols. We know better how to control the reaction. We have more developed processes rather than RMBK, which is what was used in Chernobyl. All of these things help us learn from the issue. So why do we not invest into it? Why? Simply lobbying and corruption. Gas, oil, coal. These tycoons lobby across every single government administration we've had since nuclear energy became a viable source against its investment. They do this because it's a threat to their income, a threat to their wealth. While they spew out greenhouse gases damaging the environment, they are scared of a more efficient method of energy production. This method has little to no waste that can be hidden and concealed and not cause any damage by being put in a concrete box, rather than being spewed into the atmosphere, damaging the ozone where it's uncontrolled. But nobody hears that. Nobody hears that because of this money, because of pop culture rallying against it, because of generalized fear-mongering. And this fear of something that could happen. But I want to leave you with this. Why should we not do anything out of the fear of something that could happen? When humans discovered fire 400,000 years ago, did we stop using it out of fear of something that could happen? When London burnt down in the 1600s, a great tragedy, did we then stop using it? No, we didn't. Why? Because it's a tool we can use and utilize. This is the same as nuclear energy. It's a tool that we can utilize. We can learn from our mistakes. We can grow. as a society, as humanity. So what can you do? Protest, fight, explain away these issues as I have with you today. Fight misinformation and make sure people know the truth. Thank you.